It was the ultimate clash of two football titans. Articles and major news reports flooded in the hours and even days later. Forget about the great game between Geelong and the Western Bulldogs, or even the rematch of Bailey Smith against his old teammates. It was all overshadowed in a far more dramatic event of two men walking past each other, which lasted about 10 seconds. Channel 7's Kane Cornes and Bulldogs senior coach Luke Beveridge made front page news of the Herald Sun and had Fox Footy's John Ralph eager to spill the beans on all the drama. It's fair to say the AFL media might have hit a new low on this one, but it was so funny and bizarre to see the reactions that deeper analysis is needed. So let's get to the main event. Not long before kickoff of the Thursday night game, Luke Beveridge was walking over to do his Fox Footy interview. If you don't know, he doesn't like Kane Cornes, and the Bulldogs were one of the first teams to ban him from interviews with their players or from him coming into the rooms. It's basically the same thing North Melbourne did not too long ago. But let's roll the vision a couple of times so we all get a clear picture of what actually occurred.
Now, Cornes was already banned from the Dogs' rooms after a series of negative articles and comments in regard to Beveridge that the club believes is personal, called him a poor ambassador for his football club.
Now that is out of the way, let's have a look at how Cornes described the events. I've got a feeling his delusion has entered a new level. The day after on SEN with his co-host David King, Cornes spilled his beans on the ugly clash. At least that's what the Fox Footy article these quotes are from, called the 10-second confrontation. Cornes said, "I was staring out blankly into space to the players warming up, and just out of the corner of my eye, Luke Beveridge and the crew started walking towards me. I thought, oh, okay, this is going to be interesting. How do I play this? How do I play this also translates to how can I get a reaction from Beveridge and insert myself to make a situation. Anyway, here is the first bit of delusion. So I just stood there and looked out, and as he came closer to me, he was staring at me strongly with a strong look on his face. It was from 10 or so meters away, and as he got a little bit closer, I looked back and I just said Bevo and nodded my head. But if we roll back the tape, it is blatantly clear the volcano makes his way over to Bevo, not the other way round. Beveridge is on his way to that Fox interview, and all he does is turn and stop for a brief second or two. Cornes, the tough guy he is, also strangely has his chest puffed out and is clearly trying to antagonise Beveridge, who everyone knows has a small tendency to lose it, especially with people he doesn't respect. Cornes finishes off describing the event saying, "The reaction was the reaction you saw. I don't know if it is for me to share what he said. I'm happy to tell you exactly my part in this. Other than to say Bevo and nod in my head, it wasn't received well. It was something along the lines of, you've got the nerve to say that, and I just said, what, I can't say hello." Then he turned around again and started to go again, and that's when he was dragged away. Again, delusional Cornes said Bevo was dragged away, he simply walked off, and that was that. One last point is with Nick Riewoldt in the background that not many people picked up on. It is funny to see a co-worker of Cornes give him this type of look, and it shows how much of a pain in the backside it must be to work with the guy. But as eye-catching as the small incident might have been, there was obviously nothing. Maybe some expletives, but no punches thrown, and 0% chance of a physical altercation. However, if you didn't see the event unfold live or afterwards, and just looked at the news cycle depicting the altercation, you would have thought it was an ultra-heated verbal clash that needed to involve some form of security. The hyperbole was to another level. Let's first have a look at that Fox Footy article. The headline reads, quote, "You've got the nerve to say that. Corn reveals exchange in ugly Bevo boundary line clash." How about the Herald Sun, the marquee Victorian paper when it comes to covering the country's biggest sport? Jay Clark, the chief football writer at the paper, wrote, "Corns versus Bevo, how footy's biggest tinderbox erupted." That's a bit of an exaggeration, and then was followed in the intro saying, "It was the fiery exchange between two men who, for their own reasons, were not going to back down." Jay Clark goes inside the feud between Luke Beveridge and Kane Cornes. Then 7 News had their own go and might have created the funniest headline. Luke Beveridge and Kane Cornes face off in explosive pre-match confrontation. Even for the news, using the word explosive is a bit of a stretch. So if any of you watching did see these headlines and didn't see the full vision, well, you can now see the interaction was minimal. Sure, it was a confrontation, but very, very tame, and really nothing in the whole scheme of things. Not that some of the major news networks wanted you to think like that. The final point of the ordeal was in the post-match press conference. We've heard from Cornes himself and the news outlets, but what did Luke Beveridge have to say about it all? The head reporter for Channel 7 in Mitch Cleary tried his best to get another headline out of the Dogs coach.
Take us through the incident with Kane Cornes pre-game, especially looking at that unfolded.
What incident?
Like you shared some words with Kane, it looked like you got quite close with him.
Ultimately, when we come in here and we talk about the game, I think that's probably all we're after, isn't it? If you're trying to drum up any controversy, I don't think there was any, so I've really got nothing to say.
Just the vision, looks like you walk past each other and you share some words, so I know you've had, in the past, you've been strong against Kane and, you might have even been left out of your rooms. You've locked him out of your rooms in the past.
I know what you're trying to do, Mitch. You're not going to get me to bite. We've got nothing else?
Fair to say Beveridge's reaction was similar to what most people would have been thinking watching on the TV. So that was the latest instalment of Kane versus Bevo. It's a rivalry that's been going for 5 seasons now, but perhaps this instalment wasn't as thrilling as it was made out to have been, and nothing really has come from it since. All it has done is worsen the Western Bulldogs' relationship with the lead broadcaster in Channel 7, who clearly are in love with the Volcano and his ratings, and further cemented Cornes as the biggest antagoniser and instigator in the AFL media landscape. He really is creating a niche for himself of upsetting clubs, and it is fascinating how 7 and even the AFL themselves don't seem to have any problem with his style. If you do follow American sports, then you know many of their big names and personalities love to create a bit of drama on and off the field or court, and it must be giving inspiration to Cornes to go for it if he sees a chance to. So far so good, but seemingly every week he is pushing the boundary and seeing what he can say or do and get away with.